we go. At the top of the class on a roll. And it's time to run it up, yeah, you know. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor. Ayy, on the road, here we go, here we go. Yeah, we winning by a landslide. Never see me coming, I'm a landmine. Yeah, I ain't taking orders in command like. Yeah, you about to see me on demand like. You know on demand. If you ain't know, you about to understand. Yeah, I got the team by my side, right hand. Yeah, take it to a string, you ain't seen it like that. Yeah, and it's the dream, and we coming for the bag.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack 2023 Fantasy Football Team Previews. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me today is Jordan Schultz. How's it going, man?
Doing pretty good. I feel like I'm going to be a little bit sad after we finish talking about how good this Eagles team is, but other than that, doing pretty good.
You and me both, man. My co-host for the Fantasy Six Pack Hour, AJ, would love this, but yeah, screw that. Anyway, so obviously we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles here, this show, and before we jump into that, though, I want to ask everybody to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave those comments. We appreciate it, and make sure you jump over to FantasySixPack.net/plan to become an all-access member, where you're going to get access to our fantasy football draft cheat sheet, our projections, our award-winning rankings, and access to our Discord channel where you get to ask your custom league questions and, you know, let us help you dominate your drafts and leagues and, you know, go ahead and bring that championship home. That's what it's all about. So without further ado, let's jump into our Eagles preview here and start off with the quarterbacks, Mr. Jalen Hurts. Super breakout season in 2022. Leading the way here. A lot of rushing yards involved in that breakout. Just what, you know, can he get close to replicating his elite 2022 production?
Man, it's tough. So let me get this out of the way starting off. So from a real life NFL perspective, like Jalen Hurts is in that elite group for me. Like he has firmly cemented himself in there with what he did last year. Top 3 quarterback scoring for fantasy. Only had 460 attempts. Had 8 yards per attempt. Only person in the top 10 that was better than him was Patrick Mahomes at 8.1. So that just shows you. But even that 8 versus 8.1, that just shows you how close and how good he was last year. That being said, I don't know how sustainable what he did last year was for fantasy. That might have been close to his fantasy ceiling last year. That being said, Jalen Hurts has gotten better every year, so he could come out this year and take another step forward as a passer. But just looking at what he did last year, 13 rushing touchdowns. Like that's a good year for a running back, like let alone a quarterback. He had 3 games, multiple touchdowns. So 7 of those 13 touchdowns were in 3 games. So I really think he's going to need an uptick in passing volume, or I think he could realistically be more of like a top 6 to 12 fantasy quarterback as opposed to the top 3 we had last year. That being said, he was one of the most consistent last year, had 24 or more fantasy points in 10 of the 15 games that he started. Mm-hmm. So if you were going to bet on one guy to, you know, take another step forward as a passer, I mean, it's got to be Hurts. Like that guy's story is he overcomes and just gets better and better and better. So if there's a guy I'm betting on doing it, Hurts is in that group. But that being said, like I'm not really valuing him as like a top 3 quarterback. I'll safely take Burrow over him this year. And then I think when you get to Lamar this year, I think when you look at Lamar and Hurts, I think it gets real close this year with Lamar and that new offense. I think that's going to be closer than a lot of people think.
I do not agree with you. I am firmly planting him in that top 3. I think it's Allen, Hurts, and Mahomes. Honestly, man, you can flip-flop any of those 3. I think Allen or Hurts just a smidge over Mahomes just because you do get the super rushing stats from those 2 that you do not get from Mahomes. Now, of course, Mahomes is the far superior passer than both of them. And, you know, that's just massive. So, you know, maybe he's the safer play with those 2 because, you know, if the rushing starts dipping, then you really start hurting them yourselves. But that's why I think Allen is just above Hurts because he's kind of got a mix of both. Mm-hmm. So, like, if his rushing drops a little bit, he can still just pass the ball like crazy. Right. Hurts is a little bit riskier, but I still think he's still 24. The guy's super young, super talented. Athletic as hell, so I think the rushing is not going anywhere with him. Would you like to see more passing from him? Absolutely, but I'm not knocking him down to like the Burrow range, which is like 4, 5, 6. You know, Lamar scares me just because injuries. I know new offensive coordinator there, and you want to say they're going to be able to pass the ball a little bit better, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. So I firmly have him in the top 3. I think
Dynasty for sure. Put that out. Dynasty for sure hurts there. I think redrafts where it gets a little bit more open.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think he's so good. I was buying into it last year. I was trying to take him earlier than his ADP, and actually missed on a few leagues because people were trying to take him even earlier than me, and man, we were all right. So
I think that's going to be the Justin Fields story this year.
Ooh, I'm out on Fields. Y'all can have Fields. I'm not there on that one. So, Fields didn't get an AJ Brown. I know he got, DJ Moore, but that's not AJ Brown. That made the difference for me with Hurts last year. Was when they signed AJ Brown or traded for him, it was like, oh, all right, this is gonna happen. So, all right, moving over here to the running back room, in a very, very different running back room. Rashaad Penny comes in, DeAndre Swift, and then, of course, the same guys, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Trey Sermon. But up top, man, it's a totally different story here. Both guys, Penny and Swift, very injury-prone in their career. Both have been, very, very productive over a stretch of games, but also have had times where it's just kind of like, what happened? So out of these two, who would you want coming out of a draft, and why?
So I'll go Swift here. I've been a Swift fan since he came out of the draft in college. I don't understand why Dan Campbell hated him so much. I think you're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs kind of slide in and do everything that Swift could have done in that offense, but I don't know if it's a personality thing or if Swift isn't a good presence in the locker room or what. But I just don't understand. Every time he's on the field, he's productive, and then he does get hurt. But even when he's healthy, there's times where he has like 5 touches in a week, and it didn't make sense. But anyways, I'm going to go with Swift this year. Like, so a couple stats just about how good this is, and we're going to call this the law firm of Swift and Penny because I do think it'll be a pretty 50-50 split between them this year. But last year, so yards per carry. Rashaad Penny had 6.1, which was second out of all players with 40-plus carries. Swift went for 5.5, which was 8th. So out of the players with 40 or more carries, they had 2 guys in the top 10 for yards per carry last year. I think they both carry injury risk, as you mentioned. They've missed time, but when healthy, I think that this is going to be one of the best real-life NFL backfields in the league. Fantasy-wise, I think it could be a few weeks where they kind of eat into each other and neither of them have super monstrous upside, but I'm happy sliding Swift in as an RB2 or Penny in as kind of a rotational flex player for me. I'm more than fine betting on it. Just in this offense, I think they're both going to be able to do so much. You got AJ Brown, DeVonta Smith on the outside, Dallas Goedert, Hurts as a runner. There's just going to be so much room for these guys to run. I think that 10, 12 touches a game and they're going to be able to go for 100 yards and score a lot of weeks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do have Swift ranked just slightly higher than Penny. It's going to be hard to pull the trigger on them in redraft, but it's going to be one of those, especially if I kind of go a little receiver heavy, maybe take a Kelsey or something like that early, then you're going to have to kind of take a chance on one of these guys and just hope it works out. I love them more in best ball, clearly. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. Most people would agree with that because you just don't have to guess, right? It's going to be which one is available, which one's going to get the red zone work, which one, it's just, but yeah, I don't understand what happened with Swift in Detroit. I mean, yeah, you're right. There were games where he got 5 out of 5 for 80 yards at a touchdown. You're like, that's a hell of a game, but he got 2 carries. And you're that doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have no idea what happened there. I would love for some sort of 30 for 30 to come out about what happened with Swift.
Right, and it's hard to complain too much because they were winning last year. So I mean, they were solid. So it was just frustrating all around.
Very, very, very odd. So, all right, jumping over here to the receiving room, and we got AJ Brown, DeVonta Smith, Zacchaeus. We got Quez Watkins. Sorry,
Olamide, I think.
Olamide, thank you.
That's how I say it.
I think you're right. Britton Covey and Tyree Cleveland. Look, I mean, AJ Brown came in and proved any doubter wrong that he wasn't legit. I think some people thought, oh, he's going to the Eagles. He liked to run the ball. He's got no. The dude just balled out. Is this arguably the best or second best, maybe, receiving duo in the NFL, and which one do you like more for fantasy?
So yeah, I would say they are the second best group, right behind CD and Brandon Cooks. No, just playing. Behind Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So yeah, I do think they're the second best in the NFL. Looking at what they did last year, combined for over 2,600 yards, had 18 touchdowns, which tied for Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, weirdly, as a duo with the most touchdowns last year. They combined for 183 scores. The only wide receiver duo that had more yards than them. 103. Yeah, excuse me. That was crazy.
Scores.
But yeah, so Waddle and Hill, the only wide receiver duo that had more receiving yards last year. And I do think there's room for both Smith and AJ Brown to get a little bit better this year, because I do think that we're going to see Hurts uptick a little bit more in the passing volume and come down a tiny bit on the rushing side. So yeah, for fantasy, like I am all in on pretty much every pass catcher in this offense. I think even like Zacchaeus and Quez Watkins behind them are going to be some of the better 3 and 4 receivers in the league.
Yeah, I mean, given their draft costs, though, I mean, A.J. Brown's probably going, second round in most leagues. DeVonta Smith's probably going third, fourth. Which one do you want?
I'll go Smith. I'll wait around and take Smith just because I think, especially if you're talking about like a super flex league, like you're talking about like some of the quarterbacks that you need going around that same space as A.J. Brown. I think I'd rather grab a quarterback early and then go Smith a few rounds later, or same in one quarterback even. I'll wait a few rounds just because, I mean, Smith was like wide receiver 9 or 10 last year, depending on your scoring. So to get him a few rounds later, I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I think I'm more in on Smith given the draft cost as well. I'd be fine taking like a receiver in the first round, then like a running back in the second. Then this is like your standard one quarterback redraft league, 3 receivers, whatever. Maybe taking a receiver in the first round, coming back and you're getting kind of at least like a locked in running back, or at least you hope so, and then kind of loading back up on receivers again. And that's where DeVonta Smith can fill in like almost a perfect wide receiver too. He's gonna have some dud games. That's kind of just unfortunately the way the offense is catered to him. It's filtered through A.J. Brown, and then DeVonta Smith gets like deeper routes and things like that. And but I mean, he has some pretty monster games to kind of take you to the victory each week. So I really like him. Moving over here, finishing off with our tight ends. Still got Dallas Goedert. They brought in Dan Arnold, and they finishing off with Jack Stoll here. Just what is Dallas Goedert's ceiling? Oh
yeah, the mythical ceiling of Dallas Goedert we've all been chasing since he came in the league, basically. So look at what he did last year. So he had a top 14 tight end finish, which isn't great, but I mean the difference between like a tight end 6 and 14 last year, a lot of weeks wasn't that big of a grab.
Hurt for 5 games.
Yeah, and so it had 12 starts, top 14, and 9 of those. His per game pace over 17 games would have had him come in as a tight end number 4. When he is healthy, he is heavily involved in a huge part of their offense. He finished as a top 12 tight end in only 12 games. I mean, so the ceiling is probably just like a step below like the Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Hawkinson tier. So, I mean, when he's healthy, like he's a must-start guy. Like he's a guy, if you have 2 tight ends and he's your second tight end, I'm okay throwing him in as a flex spot as well, too, when he's healthy. So the ceiling is, mid tight end 1, I would say. And I would say his floor probably is like mid tight end 2. And that's going to be assuming if he misses some time.
Yeah, I mean, he will not be your second tight end. You would be drafting Kelce and Goddard in the first 5 rounds. And that's suicide in a standard league. But I like Goddard. I have him as tight end 6 right now. And, I mean, reluctantly still have Pitts ahead of him, but I'm not sure why. I could easily drop Pitts down to like 12. And
don't do it yet. Don't quit on my boy yet.
I don't know, man. But yeah, I mean, Goddard's good. I mean, there's obviously just a lot of competition for receptions in that offense. A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, and honestly Swift and Penny are there as well. So a lot of competition for targets, and they're not passing the ball 600 times, right, or even 550 times. So like the amount of targets is going to be a little limited for him as well. But I mean, he's just a good player. He's going to see plenty of work in the red zone, and that's going to be great for him. He saw 10 targets, caught 7. For 2 touchdowns last year in the red zone. That's pretty good for 12 games. You bump that, even if he plays 15, you're bumping that up pretty good, and that's what you want to see from a tight end. And he can be a field stretcher too. Like he's definitely all about that. So all right, man, that's it for the Philadelphia Eagles. We want to thank you all for watching, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and go become an All Access member today at Fantasy Six Pack. See ya.
Awesome. See ya.